Today we speak with Dr. Marilyn Stoner, who has been working with seniors and in the senior care industry since 1998. Her grandparents owned a funeral home, and so she's also familiar with death. She's a professor now and has discovered something called the SilverHour, which is the 30 minutes before and after death. She wants to help hospital workers, caregivers, EMTs, and others learn the best way to help people who are dying and also their family members with that SilverHour so that people can have some control and reassurance over the process, which we will all face someday. I know that this is a subject that's unpleasant for some of us. Me too. But Dr. Stoner has a very calming essence about her, and I thought she'd make a great guest for the show.
Talking with people about how to have a great retirement. This is the Rock Your Retirement Show. We don't talk about money, but we talk about almost everything else you need to rock your retirement. Now, here's your host, Kathy Klein.
Hi, this is Kathy, founder of Rock Your Retirement. I started this show because many baby boomers think that retirement is all about money, and it's not. Think about it. It's very difficult to go from spending 2,000 or more hours every year working to doing nothing, going to zero. For the first 6 months, it's fun because you're traveling, you're tying up loose ends, maybe cleaning out the garage. But what happens after 6 months? Many times you hit a wall. Depression sets in. Sometimes people even get divorced. We want to help prevent that, and so that's why I started this show. Our guest for today is Dr. Marilyn Stoner. She believes that students can do much more than we're asking of them. They have to be shown how to start their own professional career while still being a student. Undergraduate students who are in her classes get published. They create professional posters and much more. The key to success is to focus, and Marilyn helps make that process transparent to them. She is a professor at California State University, San Bernardino, and before that, she was on faculty at CSU Fullerton. She was also the vice president for Ramona Home Care and Hospice in Hemet, California. Her passion is about end-of-life care, and you can find more information about her passion at www.silverhour.info. Marilyn, what made you decide to start the website silverhour.info?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Kathy. And I've been doing end-of-life care since I cared for my grandmother in 1988, which was the first home death I experienced long before there was a home care system. I'd been a critical care nurse before. And over time, I thought that it would be very helpful for patients, families, and caregivers to understand more about death, to deconstruct it a little bit, perhaps not be afraid of it, but understand what to expect. So I have this idea of the SilverHour, which is the 30 minutes before and after death.
So tell me about that. Tell me what is so important about that 30 minutes before and after?
A lot of times we think, especially as we retire, we think of death as being a long, involved process, and it just is not like that so much anymore. One of the things I've seen change in my many decades as a nurse is that people did used to decline kind of slowly, but especially a lot of cancer patients will live much longer, which is terrific, than they expected, and their decline at the end might be shorter than what it used to be. So there also are people who are in an accident, or myself, a cyclist, could have a crisis of some kind. So what I wanted to do is to develop a unified vision of what the last moments of life and the first moments of death are, so that every caregiver knows what to do. So if you need CPR, we know that you start out with, "Are you okay?" Call 911, and then you start CPR. That's my vision of the SilverHour, when we know that death is moments away, when we can know it, which is most of the time. And then we can help people prepare.
What would that process be?
Well, a typical, most people in the United States die in a acute care facility or a long-term care facility, and cancer is one of the most common causes of death, but heart disease is actually the most common disease in the country. So as someone approaches the last moments of their life, they can lose consciousness. They can have changes in their body temperature, lots of breathing changes. So using the silver hour as a model in the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we want to make sure the family knows that death is imminent. If the patient's still talking, we can reassure them that we'll be there with them. If they're not talking, we're still verbally reassuring them. And so we have those first 20 minutes where we're going to set the room wherever that patient is, even if it's a car accident at the side of the road. I give a lot of classes to paramedics about what they can do when they know death of somebody who's been in an accident is imminent. So we are present for them, we're talking to them, we're calling them by name. And then the next stage of the silver hour is when the person is declared dead. And many people have really strong preferences for what they want at the time that they're declared dead. Some religions want a particular position of the body. Others want a specific group to wash the body, prepare for the body. People have prayers that they want said. They may want quiet. They may want music played. I mean, there's just an endless variety of things that people want. And then the last part of the silver hour is the time immediately after death has occurred. We call it the postmortem phase. And that's when the family who's there begins their life as grieving relatives or relatives of this person who's died. And the person is transported to wherever their final services are going to be, which more and more is going to be transported to their home for a home funeral or a natural funeral of some kind. So we have markers that we want at each part of this hour so that people are totally clear what's going on, no surprises, as much as we can help people anticipate.
Wow, I have never heard of this silver hour before. Is this something that you created and
I did create it, and I've published it in academic journals, and it's used all over the world. And I have a group of a lot of them are educators where we're teaching all different types of healthcare professionals what these specific things that patients have said and the research they want, or mainly their caregivers that they want at the moment of death. So it's you can go, it's in Canada and England, it's in Saudi Arabia. A very interesting group of Canadian educators took it there. It's fascinating feedback from them. I have colleagues in Scandinavia who use it, and it's totally meant to be a shell that anybody can adapt however they want. Everything on the website is free. The silver hour is trademarked, but anything you want, all of my teaching tools are free. If there's something there that I've listened to all your podcasts, they're absolutely fabulous, Kathy.
You have?
I have.
Oh, thank you.
And the last podcast of decluttering the home, oh my gosh, that was so good. Those are my people.
Well, just so you know, Marilyn, I didn't tell you this in the pre-interview notes, but my interviews are all pre-recorded. So it could, by the time yours airs, it could be October, November, December.
Yeah,
I don't
no
know
problem.
when yours will.
Yeah, no problem. But I loved that podcast. I sent it to all my friends
Oh, you
who
did?
have
Thank
aging
you.
parents. So at any rate, so going back to the silver hour, then it's just meant to be this flexible structure that if you're responsible for caring for people who are dying in an assisted living facility or in a group home, or like I said, paramedics, there's a link to an article I wrote for paramedics, what to do in the silver hour. They don't receive any education at all in talking to people who are dying or the family members of someone who's dead. So that was even kind of surprising to me, since that's a big part of their job. And I'll tell you how I came across this idea. I grew up listening to my Italian grandmother and grandfather talk about their life in the funeral home industry. And they were from Rhode Island and they lived above the funeral home, although I did not put two and two together till I was many years older. And so I listened to their stories of what it was like with funerals and that sort of thing. And I worked in hospice. You mentioned I was in HEMID. I still work in hospice. And one particularly frustrating weekend, I was really, really frustrated. And I thought some of the patients' families weren't very happy with the care, or they weren't mad or anything, but they seemed unsatisfied. It didn't seem to meet their needs. And I was just thinking that we have the golden hour in healthcare, and the golden hour is a long-standing idea that if you have a critical incident and you get to the hospital as quickly as you can, you have a greater sense of survival. And there's certain standards within the golden hour. And again, it's just like CPR. Something happens, everybody knows what to do. So I was thinking that's what we need at death. So the golden hour is already taken. So it has to be the silver hour then. And so since then, I've been working on that idea of we see a death as imminent, and the caregivers know exactly what to do, and we're helping the family understand what's going on, and the patient as well.
This is so new to me, and I have been in the senior industry for many years. And I'm so glad that we found you, because this information, although there's probably people who are going to feel uncomfortable listening to this podcast, but it's so needed. This information is so needed. What do you do when somebody is passing on? And I work with lots of people in the senior community industry, and I bet many of them have never heard your information. So I'm hoping that this podcast will disseminate more of what you do out to more people.
I hope so too, especially in California, where in June the medical aid in dying is legal. And that was a big, big change in California, where now people can actually schedule their death. They can say, as Brittany Maynard did, this is the day I'm done. The suffering is enough. And so they're actually able to completely script their end of life. They'll have the medication, which works in just a very few moments. They can choose where they're going to die most of the time, not 100%, who's going to be there, what's going to happen. They're fully participating partners because they have to be healthy enough to give their medication themselves.
Right.
So that is, I think, really a wonderful thing that's happening in California.
Wow. So you must work a lot with hospice?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so people who work in hospice are used to people passing away. People listening to this podcast are probably not used to people passing away. Maybe they've never had a loved one pass. So what can somebody expect when they know that they have a sick loved one and that person is probably going to pass away within the next few months? What advice would you give them? What to expect?
I think that the first thing someone should do when you get the information that usually your parents or could be a sibling if we're older, or whoever is going to die, or at some time in the future, because we don't really know. We're terrible in healthcare about predicting how long people have to live. But if you get some warning, that is really a gift, because heart disease is the number one killer, and half of the people who have heart disease drop dead. So there's no warning, no nothing. You get a call that somebody you love has died. So if you are in the category where you have some kind of warning, that is really precious time and a gift. So to the extent that you can, it's good to have conversations about end of life, and whenever that's most appropriate. Now, in the beginning, a lot of adult children want to immediately talk to their parents about everything having to do with their end of life. And as I've gotten older, I think it's easier to go lightly, because when you receive a terminal diagnosis, you need some time.
Right, you're in shock. Wow.
You need to be supported. You need to be listened to. If you need to be alone, your adult children need to honor that, so that you get a few minutes, hours, days, depending on your condition, to get your head around what's happening to you. And then have conversations as you're able to. There's more and more midwives of death doulas, like we have midwives of birth, that can come in and help, that will help plan and care for people. Some of them are nurses, some of them are not. People can start decluttering their house. If people have not listened to the last podcast episode, wow, that is such a symbolic act to declutter your house. A lot of times you don't even have to have a direct conversation with somebody who's dying if people feel uncomfortable. You can just A lot of people who are dying long to do one last noble deed, and that last noble deed they love to do is give away their precious belongings so that the people that they love, they can see them receive these gifts while they're still alive.
What a gift.
So whatever entryway into the discussion that is best. For some, it might be a religious conversation. It might be, okay, what's on your bucket list to do? Let's go do that. It may be a trip, traveling around. It may, even for some people, you had podcasts about people taking up new activities that they've always wanted to do. And that's the vehicle for then talking about death. It doesn't have to be a sit down, look me in the eye. Okay, let's go over the signs and symptoms of death. It can be a more gradual process.
Or if you know you're about to pass, you could go on a cruise with your whole family and let them know on the cruise.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Take everybody, and have it be a celebration and tell them, my husband and I are not ill. We're not sick, but we both have healthcare powers of attorney and directives. And I just went to a workshop a few weeks ago and found out that I got this little booklet that is much more detailed than our healthcare power of attorney, than our directive. And so we're going to go through and we're going to say, at what point do we or don't we want a feeding tube and that kind of thing that I don't think we really discussed in our original directive. I think that these things should be done before you're pronounced end of life. And can your SilverHour be used in conjunction with that healthcare power of attorney and directive?
Yes. If somebody, and if it weren't for lawyers and estate planners, we wouldn't have very many of these advanced directives done. There's still the majority of the population doesn't have them. So we have advanced directives that you and I have done that we do way in advance of our death and give very general directions like a feeding tube, like a breathing tube. But we're giving it without any real knowledge of what the end of life mechanism might be. So now
But what a gift.
Yes.
What a gift that is.
It
so
is.
That people don't have to guess.
It is so unbelievably a wonderful gift.
I think everybody over the age of 18 should have one.
Oh, I just agree with that so much. We could talk about horror stories of not having them for young people.
Should be your 18th birthday.
Yes.
That's the first thing you do. You sign up for the draft and or whatever, and you fill out your healthcare directive.
And at the party, just before you blow out the candles, everybody gets a new one to update, the old one. So
right. Good idea.
Yeah. But for people who are ill, who are moving towards with a significant disease, we have Pulse now, which is physicians' orders for life-sustaining treatment. And
is that only in California? I'm sorry.
It's all over the country, and
it is.
There's state forms, so you could just go to polst.org and pick the form for your state, and that one's much more specific. It's done with your physician, where an advanced directive isn't done with a physician. And in the Pulse, you're going to talk more about the specifics of what you want.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I thought my advanced health, and the funny thing is I go to these different meetings and they always talk about the Pulse, and I thought, well, I don't need that because I have an advanced healthcare directive.
Yeah. It's pretty vague. And when we get to that stage where we do have a life-limiting condition, hopefully somebody's going to ask us about a Pulse. The forms are freely available on the web, and it is a signed physician's order. So you have to have a conversation with your physician. So the physician is now reimbursed from Medicare for having that conversation with you. So the system's really maturing when it comes to providing a patient-centered best death possible, much more so than years ago.
Well, so does that mean that because I'm not 65 yet, I can't do a Pulse?
You're not ill, so you don't have a life-limiting condition.
Oh, okay. So a Pulse is only for somebody who's already ill.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So my husband and I, we've done what we need to do,
Yeah.
and we'll just update our advanced healthcare to be a little bit more specific.
Yeah. The only thing I would recommend is, and I did this for my dad. There's 6 kids in my family, and I do this for everyone. Sometime on a nice day, everybody's relaxed. You and your husband get your mobile phone out and do a short little video about whatever it is you want to say. I love you. I'm good with no feeding. I'm not afraid to die. Or I am afraid to die and I'm counting on your support. Or we've got an advance directive. I expect you to go by it. Whatever it is you want to say, just do a little video of that. Post it on Facebook, a private message on Facebook, or send it an email to the people that you think are likely to be there. And it will save so much angst between the children because they hear your voice, see your face saying, I've got this form. I want you to go by it. I love you. It's all good. We're all going to die. Whatever your philosophy is, it's the most valuable thing that people
Yeah,
do.
because people, even with advanced healthcare directives, they don't have to be followed. And,
Well, they
you
are.
know, I
Well,
was,
unfortunately, they aren't followed. I mean, the legal mandate is there, but if you have, in my family with 6 children, if there's any kind of disagreement among the children, the healthcare workers are going to go by more treatment rather than less treatment.
right. And if anybody hasn't seen, I just saw the movie Being Human, and I don't know if you've seen
Not
that
yet,
movie or
no.
not. I saw it at an event that I went to. I was representing the San Diego Caregivers Coalition.
Mm.
And I thought I was just going to sit there with my computer and do work while the event was going on because I don't deal with hospice in my real job. I'm not going to say what my real job is because that's not what this podcast is about. But I figured, well, I'll just sit there and hand out flyers and I'll do work. And I forgot my computer. So I watched the video. And what a powerful video. Now, the name of the video, for those of you who don't know, is called Being Human. There's also a book, and it was written and created by a doctor who realized that doctors tend to want to prolong life, even when there is no hope. And they'll try to give you hope because that's just natural. That's human to try to give somebody hope. And so what happens is it prolongs people's lives not in a good way, in a way where they're in pain or they're suffering and they're really not going to get better. I highly recommend this. Apparently, it's available for free. It's a PBS. And so if you haven't watched it, highly recommend seeing that movie with your friends. Or I don't know if you call it a movie, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it was about an hour and a half long. But yeah, that talks about end of life issues and how doctors tend to want to give hope when really there isn't any.
We don't have that unified language about death. And so you take a term like hope, and I would say there's so much hope in a peaceful death, hope that the person can make the transition that they've imagined that they would make, that their children will be good without them. A lot of patients I've had have been so worried that they'll be forgotten. And so the idea of reinforcing the legacy that they bring is a very hopeful thing to the individual, that they're not just going to evaporate when they die, from our minds, I'm saying. And there's not that kind of language. And many physicians, the research is really clear. Physicians are ordering treatment for patients that they would not want themselves if they were in the same condition. Nurses are participating in that care. They would not want it themselves if they were in the patient's place. So this is really a serious issue. And because that moment of death, in my mind, is a very, very important moment, equal to the moment of birth, if we can just think a little bit about it, maybe even who you don't want in the room, because it can get really crazy at the last moment of death. Any kind of vision that you have of, lots of people, I just think I'm half retired myself. My husband's totally retired. I so look forward to it, and I just want to do what I want to do. And it seems like as you get older, you get more and more freedom. And it's just so great when you're not working and raising a family and all that sort of thing. So a lot of people now like to do pretty crazy things in
When
their
they
last moments of death. They dress up in costumes, they put on
oh wow.
makeup. They one of my favorite ones, the fellow made his money in ice cream parlor, so he had an ice cream truck right there and everybody was coming to see him, got an ice cream cone. Now that's my kind of guy.
Yeah, that's an incentive to come visit
Yes,
you.
it is.
Free ice
Uh-huh.
cream.
And kind of got everybody's mind off of, that he was about to give his last breath, and it was cheerful and it was really personally meaningful to him. And he didn't have an idea that people would forget him because everybody would remember the ice cream social silver hour death moment.
Wow,
Yes.
that's really unique. I never would have thought of doing something like that. So, do you think that people that have been healthy throughout their lives have a better death experience? Or do you think people who have been maybe spiritual throughout their lives have a better? Is there anything that you can pinpoint in your experience that helps people have their own better death experience? Not the families, because
Uh-huh.
the families are going to do what the families do, right? But you as an individual, like let's say I found out tomorrow that I had 6 months to live. What could I have been doing in my life that would give me a better silver
Uh-huh.
hour?
Well, I think a lot of people ask me about the religious question. And one time I tried to figure out how many deaths I'd been at in my, almost 30 years in hospice. And frankly, it got so depressing to think of what that number might be. I gave up trying to figure out what it was. But people will say, do people find God? Do they lose God? What? Because that's the most common area. And I would say, just looking out over the years, as many people find God as lose God. And of course, religion is very, very important to many people, and it does provide a great source of comfort to people. But people have interesting changes in their ideas as death becomes very close. But I do think people who have been talking to other people and have created an environment, wherever that environment is, a nursing home, their own home, an ICU bed, an emergency room, where they're able to connect with the people around them. That's 50%. And the people around them listen and create that peaceful space. Those people will have a much more peaceful death.
So it's really more about your social life than anything
I
else.
think it's the environment in your own mind, in your own heart, and then the extent to which you're able to reassure. So many times the people who are dying are the ones doing the reassuring to the ones who are living, that they'll be okay, and that creates that peaceful environment. Uh, and there's a lot of things that happen towards the end of life. People want to reconnect with people that they haven't connected with in a long time. And as a hospice nurse, for instance, you may be the one who's going to try to call. You may even do this in your other job, where you're going to call a sibling that the person hasn't spoken to in 20 or 30 years and try to make a connection. And that is equally as disruptive as it is rewarding. So
Right.
the fewer surprises at the very end, the better the death is.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, because if you haven't seen somebody in a long time, you really don't know the person like you think you do because they've had so many changes in their lives.
And
So,
I have my students and clinicians when I do a class. A patient's dying; they're maybe going to die during the night. They've asked you to call their brother that's also old. They haven't spoken to him in 35 years. You call the brother, and the brother says, "I don't want anything to do with him."
oh no.
Now,
Yeah.
what's your job? Going back to that patient who's about to die, what is the best intervention for that?
I
So
don't know. I think I would say I couldn't reach him.
yes, well, what I call a therapeutic lie, a lie that doesn't hurt anybody, is definitely in order. So I offer that, kind of my line is, I spoke to your brother. He wants you to know that, we spoke, and often not so nice is what he wants him to know, but he wants you to know that he spoke, that he's thinking about you, and now he's really thinking about you, that we made the call, but he's not able to come right now.
Oh, see, you're a lot. You, see, you're a therapist,
Yeah.
and I would just say I couldn't reach him. I don't know where he
Yeah.
is.
But then the problem is they're going to keep asking you about it.
Oh,
So
see,
I like to have, open it up and put it to rest all in the same conversation, because
that's why you're the expert and I'm not.
because moments are ticking away, and we can't be spending all of our time on this brother that we know now is,
It's never
yeah,
coming.
he's out of the picture. So, that's kind of an idea also of having that understanding of the silver hour, and the clock is ticking, that you want to prioritize, pick the kinds of things you really get deeply involved in, and exclude other things that won't be as productive.
Okay, well, that makes total sense. Now, I want to interview you again after you retire because you are a very interesting woman and we have not been able to get into some of the things that you do. So let me know when you retire and
Okay.
we'll definitely do this again because it sounds like, it may be a few years, it may be whenever, but definitely please keep in touch. But if you've listened to my interview, so you know that there's always two things I like to ask, and the first one is, what do you think people should know before they retire? Now I know that you're not retired yet, but didn't you say your husband is?
Yeah, and I'm half retired.
And you're half, but
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
so what is like the one thing that you think people should know about before they retire?
It just occurred to me that maybe it's the same thing I think about death. People should think about, what do I want? And, we talked a little bit, we're into cycling, and it's, you have to go out and get what you want. You have to tell people what you want. So you have to think about what it is you want to do and start working on it. And maybe you want to volunteer, before you jump into a big project, or you want to just look at YouTube videos of whatever the thing that you think you might like to do. Uh, I think it's a great time, for most of us. My girlfriends and I, we've been friends for a long time. So, I'm 60, and to be perfectly honest, the next book I'm writing is about sex after 60. And a great goal would be to rekindle your intimacy with whoever your partner is. So just think about whatever your goal is. It doesn't have to be, traveling around the world. It doesn't have to be learning a new language. It can be something right at home that's really meaningful.
Well, I definitely want to talk to you when that book comes out as well, because as you know, that's one of the things that we discuss on this show. Usually not with the retirees themselves, but usually with therapists. So thank you very
Mhm.
much for that. Now you've met a lot of people. You've met a lot of people who are retired. Usually, though, you're meeting them when they're at the end stages of their life, in your past history. But I'm assuming that you have friends that are retired. And so the next question is, let's say you have a friend and that friend feels stuck in their retirement. Maybe they didn't do what you did, which is you've started an activity of bicycling. But let's say they're not into that. What advice would you give to somebody who feels stuck in their retirement right now in order for them to get unstuck?
I would really, uh, help them focus on how absolutely precious life is, and it's not going to go on forever. And it's great, I think, for someone who's stuck, to help them identify people that they admire, and what is it about those people that they admire, and is this precious life that you have left, is it going to be spent sitting on the couch, or are there some interesting things you might be able to do that you're interested in doing? For some people, and I have many friends who were stuck badly when they first retired. And it was really surprising to me because many of them were very active in their work life. And I think part of being stuck might be being physically, mentally, spiritually exhausted from years and years of work, especially in this crazy world that we have right now. So maybe those 6 months are more of a restorative time. And also, you've mentioned on other podcasts how things go pretty well the first 6 months, and then what? So I think really understanding the preciousness of life and the impact that person has on the people around them is a great starting place for helping people get unstuck.
Great advice. Thank you so very much. Now, how can people reach you in case they have questions about the Silver Hour or anything else that we've talked about today?
Thank you for that. You can contact me via silverhour.info. And it's important to note that the extension is .info and not .net. Because evidently the Silver Hour is a mining term. So somebody owns the Silver Hour, but it's just parking the URL and nobody can use it. But silverhour.info, it'll come right up. A lot of my work, like I said, is free and online. Also in my contact information, I gave you my Google Voice number, so anyone can call me directly from that number. I'm very easy to get a hold of.
Do you want to give that number out, or do you want to keep that just between us?
It's on the email that I sent you, so you can.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. That phone number is 951-534-9014. And then what about email? Are you on Twitter?
Yes.
Any other ways?
I'm on Twitter and Pinterest at Dr. M. Stoner, so DRMSTONER, and then nursestoner@gmail.com would be great. You'll definitely get me.
Wonderful. Well, Marilyn, thank you so much for being on the show today. This is definitely a subject that is a little touchy for some people, but so glad that you came on and enlightened us. For my listeners, thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Rock Your Retirement. I know that this subject is not something that most of us want to think about, but it is so desperately needed. When I had 1,400 financial planning clients, over and over again, I saw somebody died, and then the person who was left with a big mess. So we put together today's freebie called the 5 Things You Can Do Now to Help Your Loved Ones After You've Passed Away. I know that you don't want to think about your own death, but this is so desperately needed. It will just take you a few minutes, so please go to the website and download this freebie. You will be giving your loved ones a gift of love. You can find the freebie at rockyourretirement.com/lovegift. Next week, we have a very special guest for you. It's Joyce Richmond, and she's going to be talking about what executives need to know when they retire. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're not an executive that you shouldn't listen to the show. You should. But if you know an executive, this is the show to let them listen to. So we'll see you next time on Rock Your Retirement.
Thanks for listening to the Rock Your Retirement Show. If you are rocking your retirement or know someone who would make a great guest on our show, please send us an email at podcast@rockyourretirement.com.
You've pre-planned for marriage, children, college, your financial portfolio, your estate, but have you pre-planned for the one thing in life that is certain? Burial is a traditional choice for many families in celebrating a life that has been lived. But planning ahead, you can protect against inflation, prevent overspending at the time of need, and spare your loved ones the financial burden that can often be associated when a friend or family member passes. Take the steps to pre-plan today by calling Samantha Betton, 619-913-3834, serving all of San Diego County. Call 619-913-3834. Pre-planning. You know you need it.